Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Rodriguez-Watson. I am one of the pastors here at Christ City. I'm so thrilled to see you all today. I'm delighted for all of the babies, for all the families, for the parents who've had the opportunity to dedicate their children, for the friends and family who've come to visit and support this, and just for what this means in the life of our church. So whether you're here at Minor, whether you're on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. What a privilege it is to get to be a pastor of this phenomenal community. Last week, we officially kicked off a new sermon series called Pilgrim Songs. Throughout the summer as a church, we're going to be walking through a section of the book of Psalms called the Psalms of Ascent. This section of Psalms spans 15 chapters, starting at Psalm 120, ending at Psalm 134. And these are songs that were sung by the Israelites as they made their annual journey to Jerusalem to worship at the temple. From June through August, we will walk through these Psalms. We'll be preaching through them as we gather, but we'll also reflect on them. And as Matthew mentioned last week, and as you already heard in our very wonderful and long announcement, we've developed a companion summer devotional guide that tracks with each of these Psalms. Some of you all, 15 of you, have contributed these devotions to this devotional guide, so thank you for that. There are devotions, there's poetry, there are worship videos produced by Christ City that were made in 2020 to 2022, the last time that we were dislocated from this place. So those are going to be included as well. Our hope is that this guide is a tethering point for us as we're out in not here at Minor, as we're out in the wide world during the summer, making our way. This is another way for us to hold something in common as our rhythms are changing. All right. The aim in all of this, I guess I'll just wrap up with, the aim in all of this is that, like the first psalmists, we can arrive at a geography that is filled with assurance and joy in a God who is ultimately trustworthy. We may not know where the journey is going to take us. We may not know whether we'll be back here at Minor in the fall, but we know that God is trustworthy, and our hope and our faith is in that. So last week, we began to make our way through the Psalms of Ascent, beginning with Psalm 120. Today, we're going to be looking at Psalm 121. And before we get there, I want to give you a moment to think. This is going to be a nice thought. I want you to think about majestic views, a majestic view. Think back to something in nature or in the natural world that you've witnessed in your life that moved you to awe. Maybe it was the recent eclipse, seeing the sun and the moon align and overlap and cast darkness over the earth. Maybe it was the first time you saw the ocean, the greatness and the grandness of it all, and you in your smallness, standing on the shore, peering out at something that you just can't see the end of. Yesterday, when I woke up, I looked at my phone and I was very surprised to see a text from my son Elias. He said, "Ma, you up?" It was 6:30 in the morning. And this surprised me because he's a teenager. And the teenage species of human isn't typically observed in the early morning hours on a Saturday. Turns out randomly, he and his brother had both woken up before dawn. They saw the sun breaking and quickly popped the crawl hole to our roof open. And they sat on the roof as a new day broke over the neighborhood, the houses, the streets that they loved. Stunning. About 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to hike Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. Any Half Dome hikers? Okay, one! Great! So I love hiking, though I don't get a chance to do it as much recently. When we lived out west, we hiked more often. In fact, Matthew and I took a 7-day doctrine of creation class when we were in seminary together. He'll tell you that that's where I proclaimed my love for him. Different story for another time. You can ask him about that later. I've hiked among the giant sequoia groves, the gorgeous redwood forests along the sea cliffs of the California coast. I hiked a 13er. That means like a mountain that's above 13,000 feet in Colorado a few years ago with my sister. I've hiked portions of the Appalachian Trail out in the Shenandoah Mountains. I've done urban hikes, day hikes, long hikes, short hikes. Some I've enjoyed, some I'll never do again. But my all-time favorite hike is Half Dome. It's situated above the Yosemite Valley, and the trail to Half Dome is between 14 and 17 miles long. The elevation gain for the hike is 5,300 feet. The top of Half Dome sits at above 8,000 feet of elevation. It can take as much as 16 hours to hike. You can try and do it in a single day. Lots of people overnight on the trail. The trail includes majestic waterfalls, incredible valley and mountaintop vistas, plenty of shaded areas, loads of switchbacks. But the most famous feature of the trail is the cables. See, you summit Half Dome from the side of the rock, rather than its back or its face. The cables are there to help you scale and descend the 400-foot sheer granite, 40% to 60% incline to get to the top. It's as intimidating as it is exhilarating, I'll be honest. The hike is beautiful, it's treacherous, magnificent, it's demanding, it's breathtaking, and it's exacting, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring. It's the hardship of it all, enshrined in the beauty all around, that I remember. A journey from the valley floor to the pinnacle, 8,000 feet and 2 days later, from the pit to the height, agony mixed with joy. I can't tell you how many times throughout the years I have thought about that hike and recognized that though I've only hiked Half Dome once, I've hiked dozens of Half Domes in my life, as I suspect that you have too. Places marked by struggle and awe, by sorrow and wonder, by pain and promise. It seems as though our psalmist was on such a journey, one of challenge, but one that held the promise of breathtaking views of God and God's goodness. The psalmist, with a reference to the hills that hold the temple in Jerusalem, notes that he's lifting his eyes up. He's looking to the place where the people of God believed that God dwelt. He's looking to the place that held his help, that housed his salvation. In despair, as we talked about last week from Psalm 120, the psalmist is looking for and looking to the Lord. The rest of the psalm responds to this opening question: where does your help come from? It comes from the Lord. Verse 2, it says, my help comes from the Lord. Verse 3, the Lord watches over you. Verse 4, the Lord watches over Israel. Verse 5, the Lord guards you. Verse 7, the Lord will keep you from all harm and watch over your life. Then concluding in verse 8, the Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. The answer to the question is that our help comes from God, that God watches over us, God guards us, and God keeps us. See, different translations of the Bible use the words watch over, guard, and keep. So, we've got the ones here. You may have a different Bible at home that will use any one of these interchangeable words. But the thing is that that word in the Hebrew, which is what Psalms was written in, it's the same word every time. That Hebrew word is the word shamar. It's a nuanced word that holds a number of meanings. And it is in this multiplicity of meanings that the English translators are trying to hold together this one idea. The predominant meanings, as I mentioned, are watch, guard, and keep, which is why they often all show up in different verses. The same Hebrew word, different meanings. I think for us, each of the meanings gives us a subtle and beautiful insight into ways that God helps us on our journeys. Journeys that can hold anguish and awe. One of the meanings of the Hebrew word shamar that's used in Psalm 121, like I said, is watches. And throughout the passage, it can be read as God watches over us. Now, I realize that this can sound kind of creepy, right? It can be perceived in kind of a creepy way, right? Like God the stalker or something. Two songs come to mind from a very long time ago. I'll just go ahead and date myself. There was in 1984 a Rockwell song, I always feel like, somebody's watching me. Thank you. The even more creepy, I think, version is Police. The Police, thank you. Yeah, that's the creepiest ever. What is it? Every move you make, every step you take. Ooh, you just make your skin want to crawl. It's not that. That's not the kind of watching over that God does for us. And instead, it's the comfort of God's gaze. That's what the psalmist is trying to communicate. The comfort of God's gaze. It's like the word that can sometimes be translated as vigil, meaning to keep watch over someone, especially when they're vulnerable. Think of holding vigil in a hospital room when someone is sick. Or think of a vigil that you hold overnight, asking God to come through in a special way. In this way, those holding vigil are keeping watch through the night while the rest of us rest. At other times, I think what is more of our experience in the room is that we wonder whether God has lost sight of us. The journeys that we're on, they can get complex and complicated. In the pace of our lives and in the largeness of our world and the world's problems, we can begin to wonder if God is even aware of the heartaches and the pains and the hopes that we have in our individual lives and in our individual futures. Man, the world can get dizzying. And yet the psalmist wants us to know that God sees us. God watches over us. God has not lost sight of us. The Lord knows where we are. The Lord knows how we are. The Lord knows who we are. And the truth is that God not only has not lost sight of us, God does not tire of watching over us. God does not tire of watching over you. Verses 3 and 4 say, he who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Man, it's tempting sometimes to think that God could be bored of us or exhausted by us. Or maybe you think he kind of considers you a lot sometimes. Friend, you are not exhausting to God. You are not boring to the Creator who knit you together in your mother's womb. You are not too much to handle for the Almighty One, who gave you energy, who gave you your intensity, your humor, your emotions, your passion, and your zeal for life. God does not tire of watching over you. He doesn't feel weary or worn out by you. He delights in you. God delights in watching over you. When God shamars us, God watches over us, God also guards us. There's not just one way that this looks, obviously. So I'll give a couple of examples that I think are important. Sometimes he guards us from things. Sometimes God guards us in things. So over the years, I've gone with the kids to some nearby rivers and creeks. A few years back, we were up at Susquehanna State Park, camping for Labor Day weekend. We wanted to play in the water, so we walked over to the Susquehanna River. I immediately noticed, this was odd, that there was no one else playing on the riverbanks. Especially unusual since it was a holiday weekend, it was warm, it was sunny. There should have been people there playing in the water. Now, I'm familiar with this particular spot on the river since I've driven over it dozens of times. The Conowingo Dam spans the wide Susquehanna and it powers the region. And I used to frequently drive over that dam when I would visit my sister. So that day, we decided to play downstream about half a mile. The river was shallow, so the kids walked through knee-deep water all over the rocks, headed more than 100 yards out towards an island in the middle, and they kept shouting back, "Can we go to the island?" And I was like, "No, that's too far. It's just too far." Matthew and I were sitting on large rocks along the water's edge while they went and explored. And as he and I talked, I began to notice the water rising on the rocks that we were sitting on. So we started shouting to the kids to hurry back to us, and I waited with panic in my heart, but trying not to spill that panic out on my kids because I needed them to get to me safely. So I urged them, "Let's go, come on back." The river was rising, and it would have easily overwhelmed and carried my kids away had they not gotten out. That river had the power to destroy my children, and watching over them, guarding them, meant getting them out of it. There was another time, quite a number of years ago, I was out with the kids one Sunday afternoon with Carol and Fung, back when the Fung family was like 1 dog, 0 kids. Now they're like 2 kids, 0 dogs. So this was quite a while back. We went over to Shirlington Dog Park to give the kids and Asher, their dog, a chance to play in the 4 Mile Run River. It's more like a stream. It was a warm spring day, and the creek was packed with dogs and people. We wanted to stay away from the chaos, so we went a little bit farther downstream where there was less splashing and less barking. The boys and Asher quickly took to the water, and Annalise was really young, so I just held her hand as we walked into the stream. And one of the boys noticed and brought to my attention a snake in the water. Yep. I'm no snake expert, but I know that there are harmful snakes and not harmful snakes. For the record, I don't like any of them. I'm just going to say that. But I know that not all of them will hurt or kill you. So I looked at it, and the harmful ones, they have kind of a diamond-shaped head. This one did not. Regardless, I'm like, well, just don't go on your own expertise. Google it, be smart, do some research. It seemed like it was okay. It swam off, so I let the kids go back in the water. Vigilant mom that I am, I was scanning the water constantly to be sure there were no more snakes. And then I saw them. A whole tangled up knot of them in the middle of the stream. They seemed young and uninterested in the kids, fine enough, but we didn't need a situation on our hands. So Carolyn and I decided to leave that part of the stream and head up to where the other dogs and dog owners were playing. The kids and the dog played for a while longer without incident. Watching over, guarding my kids in that river was different. It wasn't going to overwhelm them and carry them away. They needed protection and guarding in the river, not from it. I was with them. I was guarding them. I didn't take them out of the river. I guarded and kept watch over them in the river. I think this is how God watches over and guards us. Sometimes it's in, and sometimes it's from. The thing that we can rest assured of, though, is that God, our helper, definitely guards us. But what about when he doesn't? The words of verse 7, the Lord will keep you from all harm. He will guard your life. It can stick in our throats because, of course, all of us have experienced harm. We bear the scars of multiple life wounds. That's why it's important to ask what this means. In the original Hebrew, that word harm actually is the word for evil. It doesn't mean harmful things, it means evil. And the word life is the word for soul. And so, friends, I think that what the psalmist wants us to understand is that as we journey to God, evil will not be able to take us out of the presence of the one who loves us most, who loves us deepest, and is caring for us most fully. It is from that harm, that evil, that isolation, that despair of soul that God keeps us. We will face danger. We will face pain, we will face trouble, we know that full well. But the evil of God abandoning us and deserting us is not something that we will face. God is our helper, and God guards us from all harm. In addition to watching over and guarding, God also keeps us. The final verse reads, "The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore." God keeps us in our coming, God keeps us in our going. We don't have to fear getting too far away from God on whatever mountains we face. We don't have to wonder whether God can be our helper if we feel lost in the chaos of life. We can rest assured that God keeps us even when we feel like we've lost ourselves. God is ever present with perfect staying power, even when we wonder whether he will journey on the roads that we're choosing. He's with us. The Lord keeps us in our comings and our goings, wherever we go, however we do or don't show up in the world. God keeps us, God comes to us, God draws near, and God holds us. If you're hiking a half dome in your life right now, God's love has the power to keep you in your coming and in your going, in the agony and in the awe. I think the story of the runaway bunny is a story that illustrates this keeping and pursuing kind of love that holds us when we feel like running, that remains steady and true in every single coming and going. And so to close, I'm going to read it. It's The Runaway Bunny by Margaret Wise Brown. Once there was a little bunny who wanted to run away, so he said to his mother, "I'm running away." "If you run away," said his mother, "I will run after you, for you are my little bunny." "If you run after me," said the little bunny, "I will become a fish in a trout stream and I will swim away from you." "If you become a fish in a trout stream," said his mother, "I will become a fisherman and I will fish for you." "If you become a fisherman," said the little bunny, "I will become a rock on the mountain high above you." "If you become a rock on the mountain high above me," said his mother, "I will be a mountain climber and I will climb to where you are." "If you become a mountain climber," said the little bunny, "I will be a crocus in a hidden garden." "If you become a crocus in a hidden garden," said his mother, "I will be a gardener and I will find you." If you are a gardener and find me, said the little bunny, I will be a bird and fly away from you. If you become a bird and fly away from me, said his mother, I will be a tree that you come home to. If you become a tree, said the little bunny, I will become a little sailboat and I will sail away from you. If you become a sailboat and sail away from me, said his mother, I will become the wind and blow you where I want you to go. If you become the wind and blow me, said the little bunny, I will join a circus and fly on a flying trapeze. If you go flying on a flying trapeze, said his mother, I will be a tightrope walker and I will walk across the air to you. If you become a tightrope walker and walk across the air, said the bunny, I will become a little boy and run into a house. If you become a little boy and run into a house, said the mother bunny, I will become your mother and I will catch you in my arms and hug you. Will you pray with me? God, you are the God who keeps. You are the God who chases after. You are the God who watches over. You are the God who guards us. And when we ask the question, as we so often do, where does my help come from? How am I going to make it through the day? How am I going to make it through this problem? How am I going to find a way through? The answer is you. You are with us. You have always been with us. And so we say thank you for your faithfulness, for your goodness, for your love. We are so grateful that you are a good God. And that just like a mother bunny, you will catch us and you will hold us. And we pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. Each week, we take communion as a reminder of the grace and goodness and mercy of God. We know that God is present and is the kind of God who draws near because God sent Jesus, his son, Emmanuel, God with us, to make a way for us to be in relationship with him. Because of that, we don't have to trust in the strength of mountains or in our own strength that wanes from day to day and season to season. Our hope and trust is in Jesus, the perfect one who died and rose and offers us all that we need for life and godliness today and forevermore. So we invite you to come to the table bringing your whole self, the ways and places that you need help, your insufficiencies and your imperfections, your joys and your strengths and your victories. They all belong here at the foot of the cross.